You've seen them everywhere, right? From sci-fi movies to the factory floor, and now maybe even at your front door. The story of the robot. It's really a story about us. Our ingenuity, our ambition, and our never-ending quest to make life just a little bit easier. But the origin of that story, it might actually surprise you. So let's dive in and see how we got from a simple, kind of dark idea to the complex robotic world we live in today. So get this. Our story doesn't start in some fancy lab with a bunch of scientists. Nope. It starts on a theater stage. The word robot was actually introduced in a play, and its meaning, well, it's a little dark. Forced labor. Isn't that wild? Right from the get-go, the whole point of robots was to do the tough, grueling work that we humans, frankly, just don't want to do. And that one idea has pretty much shaped their entire journey. Okay, so what actually makes a machine a robot? I mean, what's the difference between a robot and, say, a toaster? It really boils down to one key idea. It has to be reprogrammable. See, your toaster does one thing, it toasts, but a robot, it's built to handle a whole bunch of different tasks automatically. Especially those jobs that are, boring, dangerous, or just plain difficult for people. That's its whole reason for existing. But let's dig a little deeper. What really separates a robot from something like, I don't know, a fancy dishwasher? It's this whole stack of features. At the beginning, it was all about automation and repetition, doing the same thing over and over. But the real magic, the real game changer, happened when we started adding adaptability, and then intelligence, AI. All of a sudden, they weren't just dumb machines following orders. They could actually start to see, to interact, and even learn from the world around them.
Now, of course, this evolution didn't happen overnight, not at all. It's been this slow, steady march of progress, with these machines getting more and more capable with every decade. So let's actually track that journey, shall we?
Okay, so our modern timeline really kicks off in the 1950s. Picture these huge industrial arms on a factory floor. That's where we started. Then, fast forward to the 70s, and mini computers made everything smaller and a little smarter. But the 80s? Oh man, the 80s were the real game changer. That's when we gave them sensors and AI. We basically gave them senses. For the very first time, they could see and react to the world. And that right there set the stage for the super sophisticated, even human-like robots of the 2000s that started to step out into our world. And you gotta understand, this was the moment everything changed. Once robots got those senses back in the 80s, their potential just exploded. It wasn't just about the factory floor anymore. Suddenly, they started popping up in our hospitals, helping out on rescue missions, even exploring other planets. They were evolving from just being industrial tools into something more, like partners for our biggest, most complex challenges. Which brings us right up to today. I mean, let's face it, robots are here and they're definitely not going anywhere. But like any super powerful technology, putting them into our world comes with some incredible promise, but also some very real problems that, we really need to think about. I mean, just look at the robotic workforce today. It's incredibly diverse. We've got drones in the sky that are basically our eyes, right? We have ground robots rolling into places that are way too dangerous for any human to go. We've still got those industrial arms in factories handling stuff we couldn't possibly handle. And then there are service robots assisting in everything from the operating room all the way to outer space. They're everywhere. But of course, there's a clear trade-off here. On the one hand, the benefits are huge. Robots can work 24/7 without getting tired, and they keep people out of harm's way. That's amazing. But the downside? They still don't have our creativity or our empathy. A robot can follow a command perfectly, down to the millimeter, but it can't come up with a brilliant new idea or, understand how you're feeling. Not yet, anyway. And this brings us to the big one, right? The question on everyone's mind. What about our jobs? Now, while it's true that automation replaces some roles, it's not just a story of loss, for sure. The rise of all these robots creates this huge new need for skilled people to design them, to build them, to maintain them. So the job market isn't just shrinking, it's completely transforming. So as these machines got smarter and more autonomous, a really critical question started to pop up. How do we make sure they operate safely and ethically? We needed a set of rules, kind of like a safety manual for our brand new creations. And here's the wild part. The first person to really tackle this problem wasn't an engineer or a scientist. It was a science fiction writer, a guy named Isaac Asimov. He didn't just come up with the word robotics, he also wrote the most famous ethical rulebook for them. Like decades before a real-world robot could do much of anything at all. He was thinking way, way ahead.
So these are Asimov's famous 3 laws. And their real power isn't just in the laws themselves, but in their hierarchy, the order they're in. The first law, protecting humans, is the absolute top priority. Nothing trumps that. The second law, obeying orders, is important, but a robot can break it if an order would violate Law 1. And the third law, protecting itself, is at the bottom. It can be ignored to follow the other 2. It's this really elegant framework with one main goal: keep humans safe, period.
But that brings us to our final and maybe most critical question. Look, these laws were thought up in a world of science fiction novels. Today, we live in a world with self-driving cars, with AI assistants making all sorts of complex decisions. So are 3 simple rules from the 1940s really enough to guide the future of robotics? That's the massive challenge we're all facing right now.